Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 7, Episode 29, overall 359 of Live with CDP Sports Talk, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Gulf Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210 or email them at info@barrycullen.com. Speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet today, I was down there today for my oil change and tire rotation, and they do provide a lot of great service down at Barry Cullen Chevrolet. And as always, Live with CDP Sports Talk is on weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. I hope everyone's doing well today on this, I can't believe it's already Monday, January 22nd, 24, and I hope everyone's surviving the NFL divisional round games this weekend, and I'm looking forward to my guest today. This is going to be her first appearance on my show, and her name is Kacy Standohar. I think Standohar. Hopefully I got her name right. She's currently a sports media professional and a sideline reporter in Chicago, Illinois. She does some work for ESPN Plus. Kacy has also covered the NCAA men's basketball on ESPN Plus the Big East softball championship on FS2. And I think she does some work for a local baseball team in Chicago, not the Cubs or the White Sox, but the Chicago Dogs. I'm going to talk to Kacy a little bit about that as well. And I'm going to bring on my guest right now, Kacy Standohar. Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I hope I got your last name right.
You did, yeah. It's funny because people do get it wrong sometimes, but it's just kind of exactly the way it looks. It's like Standohar, like dough. But you did great, Chris. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. How are things with you, and how are things in Chicago, Illinois right now?
Everything is good. We have gotten past the very cold temperatures. It's a little bit warmer here in Chicago. Still very chilly, not pleasant, but I'm sure, across the Midwest and even in Toronto, I'm assuming it's chillier right now. So we're getting through it with some really good football games, and things for me are pretty good.
Yeah, we had a couple of days where it was minus 20. I did see a piece from Chicago the other day about electric vehicles, and I'm like, thank God I still have a gas vehicle. I guess electric vehicles in Chicago were not working too well.
Yeah, that's very scary. That's a really good point. And it's funny because when I moved to the Chicagoland area, I sold my vehicle, kind of like, New York City living, just bop around on the train, take public transit. But there are days where I definitely miss having a car. So
absolutely. You know what? If I lived in Toronto, they do the same thing in Toronto. Just take public transit. So when I go to that city, I always take the train into Toronto or whatever, because it's just so congested with traffic and that. And Chicago's like that as well as New York. But how do you like being in Chicago?
I love it. So I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm from Ohio originally. So it's not too far from my family and friends. And it's been nice because Chicago is like a bigger Cleveland. It's like a bigger Pittsburgh. So I've really enjoyed it. There's so many great sports teams here to cover and to work for. There's so many networks, a lot going on. I always say there's so much to do here. You can't possibly do it all. And I've been here for 5 years and things change. There's new restaurants, new bars, new great places to try. The summer is obviously the best here from about, June through September. Even early fall. It's really beautiful in Chicago. So we savor those couple months and really cling tight to it.
Yeah, unfortunately, on social media and the news, you always hear the negative things about Chicago. But I've been to Chicago twice for White Sox games, which I rather go to Cubs but than White Sox. But I really loved it. I went to the Navy Pier. I went
Yeah.
up the Sears Tower.
Mhm.
It's got a beautiful river. It's just really, I think not enough people give Chicago credit for the city it is. You only hear the negative things.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because I mean, every city has its dangers and has crime. So I know we get a bad rap sometimes, but when you are on Lakeshore Drive and you have the lake on one side, and then you turn to your left and it's concrete jungle cityscape, it's kind of the best of both worlds. So I really enjoy Chicago in the summer. And it's funny you mentioned the Sears Tower. I over the holidays for the first time I did that. It's at the Hancock Tower, actually. It's the other big tower in the city, and where they like push you out in the window and like lean you over the glass, and you
That's
can kind of
crazy.
like,
That's
yeah, it was
crazy.
it's called like Chicago Tilt, and it was very stressful but very fun. Kind of got to have that exhilarating feeling of like hanging over the whole skyline. So it was scary but cool.
Have you been to Toronto yet?
I have not.
Not you haven't been to Toronto yet.
So I'm on a mission to get to every baseball stadium. And obviously, the Blue Jays game is on my list, have not been. So I got to get up there. What I do is I collect a pin on this little board I have in my
Yeah.
bedroom. Every time I go to a different stadium, I get a different pin from the stadium. So I'll get there. I will.
I've been to 13 ballparks so far, 13 out of 32. I collect baseballs and bats from each stadium,
There you go. We're on the
and
same mission.
yeah, definitely. My goal is 32 stadiums. And one thing about Toronto, they have their own tower called the CN Tower,
Hmm.
and it's about 1,300 feet. They have a thing called the Skywalk, where you're on the outside of the CN Tower, looking down 1,200 feet and walking around the perimeter of the CN Tower. Check
Yeah.
it out on Google.
I
Check it
will.
out on Google.
I'll probably be scared if I look it up, but I would love to do that kind of stuff. I'm definitely a thrill seeker. I love roller coasters, love stuff like that. So, yeah, that's on my list. I think I'm pretty close. I'm probably like 13 or 15 ballparks as well. So, I've
That's
got
good.
a ways to go.
And by the way, the Rogers Center, which opened in 1989, I can't believe it's 35 years old. They just spent 300 million renovating it. So when you do get to the Rogers Center, either this year or in the future, you're going to see a much improved ballpark for the fans and the players as well.
That's great. When I moved to Chicago, they started to renovate Wrigley Field, and it looks a lot better. I mean, everyone is very partial to the old Wrigley and the way it looked, but the renovations are very beautiful. I know you mentioned you go to a couple White Sox games. They're actually considering building a new stadium as well. I don't know if you heard that, but their stadium kind of faces the opposite direction that you think it would. It doesn't look out into the outfield with the cityscape in the back. It's kind of like the other direction. So a lot of fans are like, you just got to turn it around.
Yeah, it's right across from where the old Comiskey was, because I walked that parking lot where the old Comiskey was. I never got
Mhm.
to go there and saw the home plate and that, but I think they were poorly designed the new White Sox stadium. I call it
Yeah,
the new Comiskey. Now it's called what? US Cellular now,
guaranteed
guaranteed
rate
rate.
field now.
Right,
Yeah, it keeps
yeah,
changing, and
yeah.
they're looking at land in the South Loop, and we'll see what happens. I know Jerry Reinsdorf is always up to something, so they were considering moving the team to Nashville. Maybe that won't happen. Maybe they'll stay put. But I will say I do really enjoy the food at Guaranteed Rate Field. They have great food. The minute you walk in, you smell the grilled onions and the hot dogs, and it's a fun experience on the South Side too.
And that stadium was built in 1990. So, do you feel this is kind of a tactic by the White Sox to say, "Hey, give us a new stadium, or we're going to leave Chicago"?
That's what I said. I mean, I'm thinking it's like a move by Jerry Reinsdorf and the Sox to kind of call the city's bluff and see what they're willing to do. So it's leverage, and I like the move. I think that why not? The White Sox have had a rough couple of years, and so if a new stadium is what it takes to kind of get things going, get fans excited about the team again, then I'm all for it.
And the south side of Chicago, I guess it's not always a safe side of that city,
Mhm.
though.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's everywhere, but you just got to be smart about it. And I think that The White Sox fans are very nice. They have a very large parking lot where there's a lot of tailgates. And I remember going to opening day 2 years ago down at the rate, and I had so much fun. People were so great, handing me drinks, handing me food. So it really is a good atmosphere on game day.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times to see the White Sox and Blue Jays, but my favorite part of it is the Comiskey hot dogs, the foot-long Comiskey hot dogs, and then the Goose Island beer. We can get Goose Island
Yes.
beer here. I love the beer, and the Comiskey hot dogs is my favorite food at that stadium.
Yeah, the 312 Goose Island beer, delicious. I don't think I've ever had that hot dog, but they have so many good options. They have the churros, like a snack, like a cinnamon snack. Love those. They have the elote corn, which I enjoy. So just a lot of really cool options there.
Absolutely. And my bucket list this summer is to go to Wrigley Field. I've seen the outside of it a couple times, but I need to go in there for a Cubs game.
You must. It is amazing. It's such a great experience. It's an immaculate ballpark. I have never been to Fenway, but people compare them a lot. That's on my list as well. But Wrigley Field is so wonderful. I feel spoiled because I've been to so many Cubs games. When you walk in, you just can tell it feels like old school baseball, and it's almost always sold out, even at like a 1:20 day game in the afternoon. Really fun experience. So you definitely have to go, Chris.
Speaking of that, Mr. Cub, one of the Mr. Cubs. I know Ernie Banks, Mr. Cub, but Fergie Jenkins, one of the greatest Cubs pitchers of all time, is from Ontario, and I got to meet him this summer. He's 80 years old now. Got to meet him, got my picture autograph with him, and he was doing some media stuff for the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame here as well. And I said to Fergie Jenkins, you and Ernie Bank and Ryan Sandberg to me are Mr. Cubs.
They really are. And, it's interesting. I just saw that Ryan Sandberg announced that he's having some health issues. So well wishes to Ryan and his family. I got to meet him at Wrigley Field several years ago. And I hope he's able to work through that and get better soon.
Yeah, I was born in the 70s, so I'm ancient, but I grew up being a Detroit Tiger fan, obviously Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell, but the Chicago Cubs, Ryan Sandberg. And I'm going to say this, the Philadelphia Phillies, one of the worst trades they ever made was trading Ryan Sandberg to the Cubs.
Yeah. I understand there's some pain there. And I did notice your Little Caesars Arena and your Detroit hat. You guys took Jason Benetti from us.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. He's a terrific broadcaster, and this caught me off guard because I know the Tigers let Matt Shepard go. He did a good job replacing Mario and Petal. Him and Rod Smith unfortunately had a brouhaha in Chicago, ironically, a couple years ago, and they were the TV crew for the Tigers for 17 years. But just a little bit about Jason and how much do you know him personally?
I was lucky to meet Jason years ago when I first moved to Chicago in 2018, 2019. I think it was 2019 baseball season. He was the former announcer for the Windy City Thunderbolts. It was a small kind of independent league baseball team in Crestwood, Illinois. And I started my career kind of doing some games for them, getting some radio experience, some play-by-play and color analyst and sideline reporting experience. And he came to the game. I think he may have thrown out the first pitch because he was a former Windy City Thunderbolts broadcaster. So I got to meet Jason, pick his brain a little bit. He was phenomenal. Obviously, his career has blown up with Fox Sports, with college hoops, with the White Sox, now with the Tigers. So you guys got a good one. He is a very nice guy and really, really, really good at his job.
Yeah, I was just so surprised, but it's a great win for the Detroit because Detroit's had a great history of broadcasters, along with Chicago as well.
Yes, absolutely. One of my good girlfriends, Natalie Kerwin, does some sideline reporting for the Tigers and for the Pistons. And she's one of my friends, so I'm really happy for her in Detroit to be continuing her career and get to hang out with Jason a little bit too.
Absolutely. And I think Jason could broadcast any sport if he wanted to.
Oh yeah. He's just a professional. He prepares well. I've seen him over the years at airports in Chicago and again, like I said, at the Thunderbolts game. So yeah, it'll be a good season for Detroit to have him at Comerica.
Absolutely. Hey, speaking of ballparks, I've been to 13. I've been to Fenway Park, and when you go up to Green Monster to sit up there during batting practice, pay attention because I nearly got hit in the head a few times with
Did you?
baseballs. Yeah, so it's a great experience, and I would say do the Fenway Park tour.
Okay.
Before you go. I think it's like
Yeah.
25-30 bucks, but Fenway Park is just amazing. And I was more interested in the ballpark than the Jays Red Sox game because it's just
Sure.
so much history in that ballpark.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited. I got to get up there maybe this summer or soon. I think I was planning it the COVID year and then everything kind of shifted. So I didn't get to any ballparks that year, obviously. Um, but I was able to make it out to both stadiums in LA. I was able to, kind of do the East Coast trip and do both stadiums in New York. So I've got a ways to go, but definitely I have a couple favorites.
My two favorites right now are PNC Park in Pittsburgh and Fenway Park.
Bingo. I was going to say that. Pittsburgh is my favorite. So I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, which is about 45 minutes from Cleveland and Progressive Field, and then also 45 minutes from PNC. And PNC is beautiful. The view of the bridges, everything about it is just perfect. I used to love going to Buccos games as a kid. So I'm with you on that.
I would like to see the Pirates start winning again because they haven't
Yeah.
won a World Series since 1979, and they really haven't had good teams since the early 90s with Jim
Mhm.
Leyland and Barry Bonds. And I think Pittsburgh's a great sports city, and
It is.
I love it down there. I think it's the second most bridges in the world after Italy. There's so many hills and bridges there, but it's just a nice city, though.
Yeah, it really is. There's fun restaurants. The bridges are gorgeous. The people are fun. Penguins games are fun to go to. Steelers games. I grew up a Browns fan, but I have been to Heinz Field as well. So, yeah, I agree with you. It'd be nice to see the Pirates start winning again.
Are you still a Browns fan or now converted to a Bears fan?
That's a good question. I was at the Browns versus Jets game when Joe Flacco just went off and had a great game. It was right after Christmas. And so, yes, at heart, I think I still am a Browns fan. I root for them to win. I understand their pain. But yes, being in Chicago, I cover the Bears. I have worked closely with the team and with a lot of guys that cover the team. So I feel for both teams. I obviously want the Bears to do well because I live here and I care, and I think Justin Fields is a good quarterback, and I root for them. But yeah, do I wish the Bears or the Browns would have made the playoffs? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you know what? And Joe Flacco kind of like this is kind of like he's at the end towards the end of his career. But
Mhm.
you know what? Cleveland is such a great sports city as well.
It
And
is.
the Browns fan base is just like the Detroit Lions fan
Yeah.
base. And I am so happy the Detroit Lions are in the NFC Championship game, even though I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. It's just
Mhm.
Detroit's another great sports city as well, and they deserve a winner.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends and loved ones who care about Detroit and Michigan sports, and so it's been really cool to see them get their due because I mean, how can you not love Dan Campbell? I've been consuming Lions content all day today. His talk with the guys in the locker room, some of the post game interviews that we saw last night, and things going on at halftime. Like he's so fun to watch. You gotta love him. And I'm just really happy for the Lions. I hope they can continue and win this championship game and head to their Super Bowl.
Yeah, with my team out now, I'm rooting for the Lions, and I had their radio guy on my show last week from Fox 2 Sports, Dan Miller, and he's
Yeah.
such a terrific broadcaster, and he's
Mhm.
put up with the 0-16 Lions and a lot of bad Lions teams, and I was so happy for him. And I have family in Michigan too, in Taylor, Michigan, and they've been Lions fans since I was born 50 years
Right.
ago, and they're not used to seeing this team win.
I know. I know the Bears couldn't have got it done, but if there's another team that I want to win in the NFC Championship, it's probably the Lions.
And as for the Bears, I remember their 85 Super Bowl team, and I really thought they were going to win 2, 3, 4 Super Bowls, but unfortunately, they were never the same after the
Yeah.
85 team.
And that's what everyone always talks about here in Chicago is the 85 Bears, and it's like what they cling to because it's all we have over here. So, I got my first taste of the Super Bowl shuffle last year. Heard that for the first time. I was like, this is incredible. So yeah, it's been cool to work alongside a lot of guys who are around for that as well and can share stories. I am too young. I was not alive for that, but yeah, it sounded like it was a really cool time.
I was 13 when that song came out, and it was really catchy. And ironically, my late father took me to my first NFL game in 1985 at the Pontiac Silverdome, where the Lions used
Okay.
to play against the Chicago Bears. My first game was Jim McMahon, Walter Payton, Richard Dent,
Amazing.
Otis. Like they had such a great team and that defense that
Yeah.
they killed the Lions that day too. By the way.
Yeah, that's a really it was a great group. And Jared Payton, who's the son of Walter Payton, is in Chicago sports media here in town. He's a great guy, and I always enjoy his content. He was one of the first people that got footage of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. So
I did not know that.
yeah, he was kind of famous for that in that moment. But I've gotten to meet Richard Dent as well. He came on a podcast where I work for CHGO Sports, and he came on the show. And so it's been cool to have some of the Bears hang around and tell stories about that, because you don't really get that from the Bulls side. You don't get that from Michael Jordan. They just have their Ring of Honor ceremony, and Michael Jordan wasn't there. Scottie Pippen wasn't there. So it's
That's
cool to see
disappointing.
that. Yeah, it was. It really was. And it's cool to see that the some of the Bears guys still want to talk about all that and hang around here.
Absolutely. Speaking of
Mhm.
Jared Payton, he played up here in the Canadian Football League for a couple years with the Montreal Alouettes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. See, there's a lot of connections. Chicago isn't too far from up there where you guys are.
No, it's about a 9-hour drive. Like from
Yeah,
here to Detroit, I can do it 4, and then I believe Detroit to Chicago is 5. So it's about an 8.5, 9-hour drive.
yeah,
Plus, we're 1 hour ahead of you too, by the way.
right. I used to be on Eastern time when I was in Ohio, so
Yeah.
I've adjusted to the Central time zone.
All right, I'm going to get to some questions, Kacy. And
Great.
my first question, can you tell my audience just a little bit about yourself? And when did you know that you wanted to pursue a career in media and broadcasting?
That's a great question. So I graduated from Youngstown State University in 2013, and I was a journalism major. So I knew I wanted to work in media in some capacity. At the time, I had a lot of writing experience, and I thought maybe I want to be like a magazine journalist or a newspaper journalist. But that was around the time that things were shifting, with some local newspapers kind of closing their doors, stopping distribution, going more web based. And I took an internship in the TV world for a local station in town. And I was a web intern and a production intern. And I kind of fell in love with TV then. It was then when I was like, okay, maybe I want to do more of the broadcasting side of things, using my writing background still, but in a different way. And so I thought I wanted to be a news anchor for a while. I was a news and sports producer in Youngstown, Ohio, and then also in Columbus, Ohio. And I loved those experiences, but I kind of got out of the business for a while, worked in marketing and PR and advertising, still using the same skills. It all kind of ties together. But when I moved to Chicago in 2018 is where I really picked up the pace with sports media and broadcasting. And I hired a talent development coach, and I worked really hard to just get reps out here in Chicago. And I started working for small teams, like I said, the Thunderbolts, the Chicago Bandits women's softball team, which sadly does not exist anymore. But and doing some high school football, high school basketball for Comcast in Chicago, and just getting as many reps and as much experience as I possibly could. And once I got a tape together that I was proud of, I started, getting some bigger gigs. And then I was able to start working for the Big East Conference and doing some of their softball games, some field hockey, some indoor track and field, some women's hoops. So it's kind of snowballed from there. I'm always a work in progress, and I want to keep doing more and more. But as you know, the sports world is very competitive, and a lot of people want to do it. So yeah, I'm just grinding. I'm out here grinding in Chicago right now.
That's my favorite word is grinding or
Mhm.
old grit that the Detroit Lions used. And I got into this 4 years ago by being in a basketball arena, and they asked me to do some camera work. They liked my camera work, which I had no experience doing. They paid me and basically led me to do some volunteer work for Rogers TV, which is a major cable company here that
Okay.
owns all the Toronto sports teams. And
Mhm.
Rich led to my podcast, which led to my radio show. And
There you go.
I can relate to you a little bit, Kacy. I don't have the face for TV, but I have a passion for radio, and this technology is just amazing. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Kacy,
Mhm.
I'm learning how to do digital writing, so maybe I'll get you to give me some advice. I'm still trying to work on my writing because I do some freelance media work for a couple pro sports teams,
Sure.
and I just gonna ask you about that as well. And I saw your resume, and just impressive what you've done so far.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I feel like radio and podcasting and social media content is where it's at and where it's going. You know, a lot of times the linear TV side of things is starting to fade. We're seeing Amazon and different streaming networks, Apple TV, pick up more sporting events and broadcasts. So you're in the right field, but I'm happy to share any of my writing knowledge whenever you want.
Absolutely. Hey, one thing too, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, obviously in the newspaper era, but now the newspaper industry has really shrunk the last 5-10 years. And
Right.
I don't know if there's going to be any more newspapers in the next couple of years. And then with the recent news about Sports Illustrated.
Yes, that was devastating. That shocked me. My dad has been collecting Sports Illustrated magazines for years. He has, the one from the year I was born. He has all the ones with LeBron James. He has, he has literally so many, and he tries to keep them in almost mint condition when he gets them. He's definitely a sports hobbyist and a collector. So yeah, I was devastated to hear that news. It sounds like there's still some confusion about will it continue? What's happening to all those employees? There are places for them to go, like The Athletic or other outlets. But yeah, I think there's still such a need for long form written journalism. I know a lot of people that work for, the Tribune or the Chicago Sun-Times and have been covering sports for years. And there's still such a need for that. I really do believe it doesn't need to go away entirely yet, because people still want to consume feature stories and long form content and read more into, all that stuff. When I do a sideline report, I would love to write something longer, but I've got about 30 or 40 seconds to get it in the broadcast before, the next play happens. So there's times where I crave being able to tell a story in more detail.
And also too, the last couple of years, during the pandemic, I wasn't able to do live interviews, but I've self-taught myself into doing live interviews with players and coaches. And as much as I love doing this show virtually and remote, there's nothing better than when you're doing a live interview with an athlete or a coach in person.
It's the best. It's exhilarating. It's exciting. It's so fun to get their reaction, especially after a big win or, before a big game. And it is an art form. You have to kind of focus on not only thinking about your next question, what you want to ask, but listening to their response and forming your next question off of their response. There's a lot to it, more than just saying, "Hey, coach, how does this feel?" So I love that. Even if you're not holding a microphone, you're interviewing a coach with a notepad or an audio recorder, whatever it might be. I know a lot of these coaches really appreciate the coverage and the time that the media puts into this, and it's not an easy job.
Absolutely not. And you mentioned that just now. As much as talking is important, I think listening is probably just as important as talking, if not more.
Oh, yes. And sometimes I kind of, hit myself after I'll do an interview and I'll listen to the coach's response back, on TV or my DVR. And I hear the coach say something and I go, "Oh, I should have asked him this." If I was really listening even more in depth, I should have asked him this. So there are days where you're like, you got to listen, ask the right question, the right follow-up question to kind of get what you're looking for out of this interview and really get to the nitty-gritty of it.
Now, after each interview, I know I do this with myself. I like to rewatch them and see what I did okay, what I did good, or what I could do better for next time.
Oh, yes, I do that too. I usually take a day after I do an interview or a game. I'll take a day and not watch it and just kind of decompress. And then the next day I'll pick it up, take a look, see what I like from it, see what I want to change. You're always growing and improving and learning and trying to be the best version of yourself, whether that's broadcast, radio, whatever it might be.
You just said that word too, and I was told this by Chuck Swirsky and Eric Smith, who's the radio play-by-play announcer for the Toronto Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started this, I was scripting everything, and Eric and Chuck said, "Look, you can write down questions or points, but talk to your guests like you're at a coffee shop, at a sporting arena. Natural conversation makes for better radio, podcast, TV, etc."
100%. You want to, like you said, it's like you're sitting down having coffee or a beer at a bar or a restaurant, just a casual conversation, inviting people in, that's what makes people feel the most at ease, and the listeners also can relate to it more.
Absolutely. And when I reach out to guests such as yourself and many others, I want them to know they can build a rapport with me and feel comfortable with me, and they can trust me as well as a media person, as a radio host.
I already do. You've got the baseball background. You got the Detroit hat, Midwestern vibes over here. So I already feel comfortable.
Yeah. And I'm also learning to do shows that are non-sports, because I want to show the radio industry that I, as much as I love my sports, I can talk to other people in other professions. And the one word I was looking to use for you, Kacy, is I want to be diverse and be able to do a little bit of everything. I might not be the best digital writer, the best camera operator, but I think in this industry, it's important to learn as much as you can.
Yeah, I always say try to be a jack or a Jane of all trades. Do a little bit of everything. Show your versatility. Show that you can help out, whether it's on behind the scenes, in front of the camera, behind the camera, production side, in the studio, whatever it might be, digitally, virtually. I think that's really great. And don't sell yourself short, because you're doing a really, really good job of it, for sure.
Well, thank you so much. And being on the TV side as a camera operator, the
Mhm.
on-air people get a lot of the credit, but you know what? Without the camera operators, the audio guys, the graphics, the producers, it's truly a team effort. And the fans don't, I didn't see this until 4 years ago. The fans don't see how much work there is in a broadcast, especially a TV production.
150%. I love my production crew. When I do the Illinois State High School football championships, I did 8 games this year. So I did 4 games a day for 2 days. And I could not do it without my producer, my director, my A2, my audio technician, making sure that I can hear in my ear, that my microphone's working, that there's new batteries, someone's able to grab me a snack or coffee if I'm running around and I don't have time to stop. Truly, they make us look good. They are the true heroes behind the production and behind the broadcast. We could not do it without them. What you see on TV is only a fraction of what's really going on behind the scenes. So I have so many great people in my corner and on our broadcast team that make it go, and I'm just incredibly grateful for them.
Now, one of the differences I noticed about TV and radio, TV is kind of more bang, bang, bang than radio.
Yeah, I think there's so many differences. I haven't done a lot of radio, but I will say TV is kind of like you're bopping in and out of breaks, and that's similar to radio as well. You have a little bit more control when you're doing podcasting, and you can control when you go to break or where you split things off. But yeah, with TV, you're trying to fit in advertisers like you did at the top of the show. You're trying to fit in a lot of different elements, and so it does move fast. And oftentimes I might have a really good idea for a story or have something that happened during the game that I want to get in the broadcast, but someone can throw a pick six or a big touchdown pass, whatever it might be, and then that moment passed, and so I move on. I'm like, okay, well, what I'm about to do isn't relevant anymore, so I got to move forward. So it is really, you got to be on your toes.
Next question I wanted to ask you as well, Kacy, is did you have any mentor or mentors when you were starting in the industry? And were there some broadcasters, male and female, that kind of influenced your career?
Sure, 100%. I've had a lot of great people as mentors. I worked early in my career with a coach named Jill Montgomery, who used to do a lot of track and field for ESPN broadcasts. And so she really was my master's program in sports broadcasting and reporting. So she was fantastic to work with. And I know she still works with a lot of clients in soccer, on Apple TV, all over the country. So she was definitely a great mentor and coach to me. I've also worked with people like Carol Veroniak, who used to work at ESPN, and a couple broadcasters that I really admire and have looked up to or have sent my stuff to are Jenny Taft. She does college football on Fox Sports. Love her. She's someone I watch all the time. There have been local Chicago people that I love. Kevin Burkhardt, who does the games on Fox, he does the Super Bowl now, and kind of took over on the A team when Joe Buck left for ESPN. He's been a great friend of mine and someone I can always send my tape to and get advice from. So there are a lot of people that want to help in this industry and really do care. And so that's great because, not everyone's going to have time. You're going to get a lot of rejections or unanswered emails, and that just happens. But the people who do reach out, I always really have a soft spot for, because then I like to give back and help other students and other people that are, looking to step into my shoes someday. So you got to pay it forward.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm doing as well, because 4 years ago when I started, I had to work my butt off
Mhm.
to improve, and
Yeah.
then when I finally started getting guests on, I managed to get people that are well known in Canada on my show, in the States, and it's just been amazing. Most of the people have been really supportive of what I'm doing,
Mhm.
and I'm hoping one day when I am successful enough to pay it forward to people that are trying to break in this industry. And
Mhm.
nobody has judged me based being 51 years old and being self-taught,
No.
and that's what I love about this industry, and the storytelling aspect. I learned something from all my guests, and I love the storytelling aspect of it the most.
Yeah, absolutely. You're never too late to start or to start over, I would say. I realistically got my start a little bit late too. I didn't start quite when I was like 21, 22. I waited a little bit because I did get out of the industry for a few years. So um yeah, it's you're in it right now and you're already helping people because you never know coming up or coming down who's going to be your boss or who's going to be needing your help or who can help you. So we've got to stick together for sure.
Absolutely. And what I love about this industry, there's always something new to learn. And recently I self-taught myself how to learn to edit video and make reels and clips of my show for my guests and for my work.
Yeah, good for you. Social media is always changing too, so it's great that you can cut things for YouTube or Instagram or TikTok and just keep the content flowing.
TikTok's great. I joined 3 years ago and I thought, this is gonna be a disaster. I'm too old for TikTok. But you know what? I learned how to cut
Yeah.
promos for my guests in my show on TikTok,
Mhm.
and it's really helped my work, and it's been a great experience.
Good. I'm glad. TikTok is one of those platforms too that is not really going anywhere and you could grow on it easily and reach a new audience. So that's great.
Absolutely. You still good for a few more questions
Yeah,
time-wise?
great.
Okay.
Mhm.
How much of an adjustment was it moving from Youngstown, Ohio to a major market like Chicago?
I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this show, but I will say that it moving to Chicago knocked me on my butt. I'll put it like that. Um, it was definitely a moment. I had moments where I was like, this is really hard, financially and just being in a bigger city and being confused about where to go and which way the train runs and stuff that I was not used to coming from Youngstown. It is a smaller town. Um, and I always thought of myself as someone that could be a big city, girl, but it was an adjustment for sure. And I spent a few years in Columbus, which was a little bit bigger than Youngstown, but still not even close to the size of Chicago. So it was an adjustment for sure. There were times where it was up and down. The pandemic was definitely challenging to live here when everything was kind of shut down and all of my sports work was, halted. So there wasn't much going on, but I always consider myself someone who's resilient and who can kind of hustle and make things happen no matter what. I've been through a lot, so I'd like to say that I could hang in Chicago now with the best of them.
And with me, our stories are a little bit different, but I can relate to what you've gone through, and you have to pay your dues when you get in the media
Yes.
industry as well. And I've had to do a lot of freelance media work for free, but
Mhm.
I've gained valuable experience. Volunteer work, internships are so huge because everyone looks at the money aspect, which is nice, but for me, getting experience and skills is just as valuable as the
Yeah.
money.
Absolutely. So when I started in Chicago too, I wasn't paid for a lot of the gigs I was doing because I was working to just build my reel and build a tape. So the payment for me was getting footage of me doing it, getting practice, getting reps, getting interview opportunities. That was payment enough. And then I remember finally getting like my first game paid for high school football and it was like $90 and I was like, yes, and it was just like my first paycheck finally making it. Um, it's a
That's
moment I'll
awesome.
never forget for sure.
That's awesome, and
Mhm.
it's just like my first paycheck when I did the camera work, they gave me $50, and I'm like, "Hey, $50, this is great."
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I was just at the right place at the right time,
Mhm.
and, just love this industry, and, love talking to guests like yourself and players and coaches, and this is something that I have a passion for. And I was gonna say, just talking to you, Kacy, I can see how passionate you are about it.
Thank you. I can tell you are too. It just shines through the screen for sure, and through a lot of the things I see you tweet and all that great stuff. So we got to keep going. That's what it is, and I'm glad that people see that in me too because, um, like I said, this industry will knock you down, and just being in a big city can knock you down at times. And you question, is this what I should be doing? Should I be doing something else? Should I quit? A lot of opinions, and people kind of get in your ear and you hear a lot of noise, but you have to kind of zone in on what you want to do, while also, and having goals, but also being where your feet are and kind of being present where you're at, because this is it. You're in it. Sometimes the chase is better than reaching the destination. The journey is better. So I'm working really hard to try to remember that and know that lesson for sure.
Mindset is huge because you're going to get a lot of people that support you, but you're also going to hear some skeptics and naysayers and that. So your mindset is huge.
Yeah.
And always stay humble. No matter how successful you get, that's the way I was brought up.
Yeah, you're going to have people that you might not be their cup of tea, and that's okay. Everyone has their own opinions, and the industry is so subjective. So you might get a yes from someone and a no from 10 other people, but I always say it just takes that one yes.
And don't take I don't call them failures. I call them setbacks. So
Yep.
you're gonna have your successes and you're gonna have your setbacks, but use those setbacks as motivation to keep proving people wrong and also to keep improving. The day you want to stop improving is the day you probably should switch careers.
That's very true. That's very true. And I always say, sometimes when you're feeling down and you might want to quit, you never know if your blessing or the next opportunity is behind door number 12. And what if you stop at door 11? It's one more, just pull through one more. You've come this far. So that's what I encourage a lot of students or people that are, and myself, I have to remind myself of it, because there are days where I'm like, what's going on here? But you just gotta keep going. And I'm really grateful for the people in my life that have also encouraged me to keep going when I'm not feeling 100%. That means a lot.
I can relate to that too. I have my days where I'm like, maybe I'm too old for this, or nobody's going to give me an opportunity. And then when I do my shows with you or my media work, I'm like, no, this is what I want to do. This is a part of me. And I'm so much happier doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It lights you up. It gets you up in the morning. Then you should keep doing it. Absolutely.
But one thing I've learned is booking guests is a full-time job itself.
I'm sure. And I'm sorry that I gave you the runaround and there were some days that didn't work for me.
No, that's okay. I'm very flexible and I work with all my guests, but people don't realize, oh, you're doing a podcast radio show at home. That's a piece of cake. It's a lot of work setting it up. You got to promote the show, book your guests. Sometimes your guests have emergencies or something cancels. You got to work with your guests. And if you work with your guests, they'll remember that in the future.
Yes, absolutely. So I appreciate the flexibility, and I know it's a full-time job. You got a calendar to manage. You're trying to fit other guests in other times, and you're also trying to keep things consistent. So I commend you for that.
Consistency is key in media or any career.
Yes, especially with the way social media is. It almost rewards consistency. So you got to stay on it.
All right. The next question I'm going to ask you, Kacy, is can you just tell us a little bit about your current role with ESPN Plus as a sideline reporter and some of the sports that you're currently covering? And I believe you just did a women's basketball game on January 20th with Andy Garcia.
Yes, I do. I've done a couple games with Andy. So I'm currently covering women's hoops for Northern Illinois, the Huskies. So I head to DeKalb about twice a week now. Where I'm doing women's games as the color analyst with Andy and sometimes some other folks that fill in as well. And it's been great. It's been a really cool experience. I love doing college basketball. I've done some games for UIC Chicago as well, some for Loyola. So I cover a lot of Chicagoland area teams on ESPN Plus. In the fall, I did college football for Eastern Illinois. So that was awesome. That was also on ESPN Plus. And, just getting experience. That's what it is. And it's been so fun to get to do multiple sports, whether it be men's basketball, women's basketball, college football. I also do some college baseball and college softball. So just feeling really blessed to have my schedule pretty full throughout the year and to continue to get work, because I know how difficult it is. Once you get on TV, the challenge is staying on TV. And so, and doing a good job and being easy to work with. I also cover a lot of high school football and high school basketball for a local station here called WCIU. And And it's so much fun. It really is to get these high schools the coverage they deserve, and then do these college games as well, especially with women's sports who, don't get the coverage that the men's teams do. So they're really grateful when we come out and do these games, and the students are getting experience working the broadcast and running camera like yourself, or being a production assistant. So, like I said, it's a whole team effort, and I feel super blessed to be doing it.
Now, have you done play-by-play yet, or just color analyst?
I have not done play-by-play, and
Okay.
I want to try. I will say I'm a little bit nervous about doing it because you have to be very quick, and I don't know. I guess I'm just nervous about it. I want to try it, and I think I could do it for maybe like a soccer or maybe softball. So we'll see. I've been doing a lot of color analyst work and also sideline right now.
One of my friends who's with TSN here in Canada, that's like ESPN, he told me, you know what, doing color analyst is the best way to start before you become play-by-play, because the color analyst adds a lot of insight into the game.
Yes.
And he always told me that try the color analyst first and then try the play-by-play.
Yeah, a lot of people say that actually doing play-by-play is even easier than color, because color you have to break down the why and the how the play happened and what this means for the team. And when you're doing play-by-play, you're kind of just calling it how you see it. So I'm not sure why I'm so nervous about doing it. It would be a new challenge for me, which I know eventually I'll do it, but it's just a matter of when.
And you know what? Even when I still do camera, and I've done it for 4 years now, I still get a little bit nervous before
Yeah.
going on air. But they said if the day you stop getting nervous before a live broadcast, then maybe it's time for you to move on, because they say
Yeah.
that's just a natural part of wanting to do a good job on the broadcast.
Absolutely. This is very intimate, but when I do a game on the sidelines, my hands sweat. I get nervous right before a game. So when I'm holding that microphone, it's like all sweaty, and that's how I get ready, and then I'm calm, and then I'm good to go. But yeah, there's a little bit of nerves, a little bit of exciting jitters going on, and that's part of it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this too, because I cover some high school and university here too. And
Mhm.
I also do some women's sports, and just amazing how women's sports has gotten better over the last decade or 2 decades, and just tremendous athletes.
Oh my gosh, how about volleyball? How it's blown up
Yes.
in
Oh,
the
I'm a huge fan
state.
of volleyball now.
Yeah, it's so
Yes.
cool to watch, and I have a lot of friends who cover it, and they're amazing on the broadcast, and it has really been awesome to see when you watch schools like Nebraska and some of these really good volleyball schools perform, and they're selling out stadiums now, and it's just so cool to see. And now women's basketball with players like in Iowa, like Caitlin Clark,
Yeah.
they're finally getting what they deserve, and it's long overdue, and it's been really really great to see, and they're impressive to watch.
Yeah, I filmed 6 hours of it the other night at the local university here, women's and men's.
Mhm.
So impressed with it. I was a little stiff standing in one spot for 6 hours,
Yeah,
but it was so much fun. And I had a great guest on a year ago from the University of Nebraska, Becca Alec. She's a middle blocker, so like 6'5",
very
19
cool.
years old. She came on my show, and after she came on my show, I started paying more attention to volleyball, and that's a sport that is definitely growing in Canada and the States.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so exciting to watch, and I'm really glad because I watch and cover a lot of girls' high school basketball, and then they go on to play college basketball. Same thing with volleyball, and it's just exciting to watch them continue their careers and feel inspired by people that have come before them to continue it. These little girls watch, all these volleyball athletes, and they're like, I want to do that when I get older, and that's
Yeah.
what we need more of.
And now look at hockey. They have the Professional Women's Hockey League now.
Yes. I know hockey is big in Canada, so I've done some high school hockey, and it's just great to see women get their what's due to them as well, because they're really impressive to watch. And
Absolutely.
I can't even imagine playing hockey as a woman. I would be like hit once, and I'd be like, I'm out, I'm done.
Women's hockey is really good, and I really like. But I'll tell you this: out of all the sports to film, I would say hockey might be the hardest one because of the speed of the game, and then you got to follow the little black puck on ice as well.
Yeah, imagine. I mean, play-by-play for that would be hard too, because you're talking nonstop like you're at an auction and you're like an announcer for an auction. It's just so quick, and you have to constantly know the right names and the right positions and the line changes. So hockey moves fast, but it's so fun.
And I got a comment from a viewer 380FOR. Hi, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. If you got a question for my guest, Kacy, feel free to ask. So that's one thing I'm working on, is trying to get my audience more
Yeah,
involved with my shows as well.
that's great. Yeah. Hello to him. I'm glad you're watching. That's awesome. Appreciate you hanging out with us on a Monday night.
Hey, speaking of hockey, it's weird seeing two Chicago Blackhawks, former Blackhawks, as Red Wings, Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane. I never thought I'd see Patrick Kane as a Detroit Red Wing.
Neither did we. It really upset a lot of Blackhawks fans here in the Chicagoland area to see him in a Red Wings jersey, but that's how it goes. I worked previously for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and
Hmm.
now have been around the Blackhawks for a little bit. So these trades are interesting because when I was in Columbus, we had Seth Jones and Nick Foligno and Artemi Panarin, and then they all came to Artemi used to be in Chicago, and then he left for New York, and those guys came over to Chicago. So it's crazy seeing Patrick Kane,
Looks
playing.
good. He looks good in
Yeah,
a Red
yeah,
Wing
he
jersey.
does. He does. I don't have as much pain when I see that, but I know a lot of my colleagues and coworkers were like, "No."
I guess it's sort of like in 1999 when Chris Chelios was traded to Detroit, because we hated him in Detroit, and then as soon as he became a Red Wing, he became a part of the Detroit and Red Wing community. And when I think of the Blackhawks, I think it's Chris Chelios is one of those
Oh
guys.
yeah, and he's still involved with the broadcast here in Chicago. His daughter Kaylee Chelios is on the broadcast as well. So it's all in the family for them. It's been really cool to see that on NBC Sports Chicago.
I have to get to a game at the United Center because I want to see a Bulls game there, and I want to see a Blackhawks game there at that
You
arena.
gotta come watch Connor Bedard. He is a
Yes,
once in a generational talent. He's been awesome to see. I was at the NHL draft in Nashville, got to cover him becoming a Blackhawk. So
awesome.
yeah, it was great. It was
That's
really
awesome.
cool. And I know we're getting close to All-Star break here, but you got to get to the UC. It's still fun. The Bulls have had a bit of a challenge as of late, but again, just the atmosphere at the United Center is really cool.
A lot of history with the Bulls' 6
Mhm.
NBA championship titles, which is hard to believe is going on, I think, 25, 26 years since their last title. And then the Blackhawks won 3 Stanley Cups, and now they're back in a rebuild. But Connor Bedard played his junior A hockey in Regina for the Regina
Yes.
Pats. He is a
Mhm.
special player. I think he's, 19 years old. And to be in the National Hockey League at that age is special.
And he's strong. He can hang with the best of them. Yes, the Blackhawks are rebuilding, and it's been difficult for them, but he has been so fun to watch. And people say, "Oh, his size, he's kind of small," but the power he has, the speed he has, his legs are really big, like his thighs. He has the physical ability to hang with the best of them in the NHL. So he's been awesome to watch.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. I've learned how to ad-lib questions on here. Since I got you on here and you're from in the Chicago area,
Mhm.
what teams would you say Chicago is? Is it a Bearstown first or the Cubstown first?
It is 1000% without a doubt a Bears town. And I think it'll always be, no matter how bad the Bears are. Yes, people love the Cubs, but for baseball, it's kind of split north side and south side, having two teams. So it's you're either one or the other. But the amount of Bears fans that we have in Chicago, in Illinois, in the world, in the country, all of it is incredible. It's just Bears Nation and Bears fans are everywhere, and they'll always care about the Chicago Bears in the best of times, in the worst times. So without a doubt, it's Bears.
What's the latest on them getting a new stadium or leaving Chicago?
I haven't heard a lot. Just today, they announced they hired their new offensive coordinator from the Seahawks, Shane Waldron. So they're trying to make some moves over there and decide what's best for them. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the draft this year, whether or not they want a player like Caleb Williams, whether or not they believe that Justin Fields is still their guy. It'll be interesting. I think the stadium conversation is kind of on the back burner right now. They did kind of buy land in Arlington. So there's a lot of people who say we got to keep the Bears in Chicago. They're the Chicago Bears. But you have teams like the Cowboys who play in Arlington, but they're still the Dallas Cowboys. So I don't know if that matters as much. I will say Soldier Field is outdated. It's hard to get to, it's hard to get out of. And so they do need a state of the art stadium like SoFi or like the Minnesota Vikings stadium. It's definitely overdue.
One thing, being a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I love the fact that the Phillies ballpark, the Flyers arena, older sports, Philadelphia and Detroit, they have older complexes in one area in downtown.
Yes, and that would be really great, and it really would. If the White Sox decide to move in the South Loop, we'll see. I don't think the Cubs and Wrigley Field are ever going anywhere. It's kind of just plopped right in the middle of a little city, a little town, Wrigleyville and Lakeview. So there's not as much parking around Wrigley Field like there is down on the south side, but that's what kind of makes it charming.
Absolutely. Hey, again, are you okay for a few more minutes?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Is it okay if I show my audience in Canada your reel? I found it on YouTube. It's about a 4-minute clip. Is that okay?
Fine. You don't have to play the whole thing. I know it's kind of long, so.
Okay. Well, I do this with all my guests. I like to show off my guests' work and stuff like that as well. And I thought you did a really good job on here.
Thank you.
By the way, just let people know that you can subscribe to your YouTube channel, and I already subscribed.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Just 1 second. Let me know if you can hear it okay.
She does, but Kacy Standohar is downstairs for her fourth game of the day. Kacy?
It's going to be a battle in the trenches today for these two teams. And after an 0-4 start against some really tough teams, Nazareth head coach Tim Rackey said, this is exactly what we want. He said, we're used to having our backs against the wall, playing a very demanding schedule. Two players he'll rely heavily on today are quarterback Logan Malachuk and defensive back Eddie McLean. Coach Rackey said, Eddie to our defense is like what Logan means to our offense. They're both just infectious players and great leaders.
Action is back, Andy. Conference play just means more for these two teams. Eastern Michigan is a team that struggled as of late to be consistent. They had that overtime win against IUPUI just a few days ago that really helped them gain some confidence. They're going to need every bit of confidence tonight against an NIU team that is still undefeated at home.
Rochester head coach Derek Leonard said, although his team is accustomed to winning and chasing their 9th state title, his team doesn't have an ego. He said they go out every day and just trust and believe that they can win. They may not always look good coming off the bus, but man, they can play.
Outside hitter Cash Williams has been a force for Penn State. 38 kills last weekend. She surpassed 1,500 career kills. The Burrell family field and the surrounding facility all built in January of 2021. And at the time that it was built, it was the only facility in the Northeast that could host a regional. DePaul looking to hit that reset button, like you said, and get in their comfort zone, while the Yukon Huskies are looking to capture that 1 seat in the Big East softball tournament.
You came up big in that game against DePaul with a homer, and then again tonight, coming up big for your offense. How did you stay so patient at the plate in these high-stakes games?
So the last 3 weeks, I've tried to cool my temper.
You're back in the championship spot again on Saturday. Familiar territory for your team. What did tonight teach you about your team?
Just, we're here. We know we've been here before, and just, keep the cool, keep it going. Sorry about that. We're gonna hit home runs. We're gonna score runs. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Play our game.
Ava, congratulations. We'll see you tomorrow. Adam, Matt, I'll send it back to you.
Kacy, you got a little Gatorade bath down there.
There's a few noteworthy alumni from this Nazareth team. Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy, who's playing in a pretty big game today, and NFL safety Julian Love. Coach Rackey said he's so grateful when those two returned to Nazareth to speak to the team. He said McCarthy will come back to work out with the players. And it's never about what he's accomplished at Michigan. It's always about the culture and what he learned at Nazareth. Coach said, I'm in heaven when these guys come back. It impacts our players so much to see the importance of buying in on this team. Obviously, a big day for JJ today as he prepares for the game. Coach Rackey said, after our 0-4 start this season at the end of September, I actually thought I was going to be able to go watch him play today. Matt? Kyle, you make a house.
Okay, that was courtesy of your YouTube channel. Please subscribe to Kacy Standohar's YouTube channel. And Kacy, just some thoughts on your reel. And did you come about creating this yourself?
I did, yes. I really did try to select spots that I thought were strong. I did consult with Carol Veroniak, who I mentioned earlier as one of my mentors in the industry, to try to pick the right spots where she felt like I looked the best, sounded the best. The information that I had was, a good spot to include. So definitely had some feedback, but for the most part, I put it together myself, and I'm proud of it, but I'm also a perfectionist. So, every time I watch it, I'm like, I could change that or move this around, but sometimes you just gotta say it's good the way it is, and turn it in.
I guess that's the next thing I need to learn how to do. I've had a demo made a couple years ago of my work, but that's something I need to work on as well. And it can be a little tedious, but it's something that you need to do to promote yourself in the industry.
Sure. I mean, nowadays for my work, the resume matters, but not as much as your demo reel matters. And so people want to see a couple snippets of your work, and I've gotten a lot of feedback of my work. So always taking that into consideration as well. But yeah, it's important to have at least 2 or 3 minutes going on YouTube or wherever, on Vimeo maybe, where you can say, here's what I can do.
Absolutely. And part of your reel I liked, I'm a big Michigan Wolverines fan, and JJ McCarthy, he proved me wrong, and I'm so happy for the school and for JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, it was great to cover his coach at Nazareth. His name is Tim Rackey, and Tim covered Tim coached JJ in high school for a few years because JJ is from Illinois. I know he eventually went to play in, I think, in Florida as well. So happy for JJ, happy for Michigan. Again, I did grow up an Ohio State fan, so it's kind of weird, but you can't deny what Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines have been able to do this past season. And I'm really happy for JJ too. It was a cool angle to bring into our broadcast.
Absolutely. And he's going to be in the NFL next year along with Blake Corum. And looks like Jim Harbaugh is going to be back in the NFL as well next year.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that all goes, because I know that it was rumored maybe that he'd be interested in the Bears job, or the Bears will be interested in him, but our head coach, Matt Eberflus, is staying. So, it's kind of an end of an era for Michigan Wolverines fans if he becomes an NFL coach again.
Absolutely. And who knows if JJ McCarthy will be the next Tom Brady.
He could be. He could follow in those Michigan footsteps. Absolutely. You just never know. I know a lot of people, didn't believe in him early. Like you said yourself, he proved you wrong, but it'll be interesting to see. I know that Jim Harbaugh is meeting with the Chargers, which is kind of what we all expected. Just a team like that for him. But yeah, it makes things interesting for next year and beyond.
Absolutely. And I just got 2 more quick questions I wanted to ask you, Kacy. What are some of your most memorable, I didn't say favorite, most memorable interviews, stories you've done in your career so far?
That's a great question. I worked in softball, as I told you, and professional softball, college softball, but I got to interview Kat Osterman, who was an incredible professional softball pitcher. And she pitched a no-hitter with Athletes Unlimited, and I got to interview her after her no-hitter. And that was a really cool moment because she can be an intimidating athlete to interview, but she was so kind. She's so much taller than me. It was so funny because I'm like 5'3" and she's so much taller. But that was a really cool moment for me because she's an Olympian. She's a well-decorated professional athlete. I believe she's retired now, but getting to interview Kat was one of my most memorable interviews. There's so many, though. It's hard to pick just a few. Getting to interview a lot of these players and coaches, especially the coaches, their last time, if they're retiring from coaching high school football and they win their last state championship, that's always really interesting for me to get to do and to be their last sideline interview. So those are a couple that stand out.
Before you go on live TV or as a sideline reporter or color analyst, is there a favorite song, music that you like to listen to?
Oh, that's a great question. I love all music. I will play music in my living room and kind of dance around with some coffee, just to kind of loosen up and to get ready to go. I'll usually pick a song that kind of pumps me up, whether that be like a fun Coldplay song or maybe something from like the 70s or even the 60s. I'm a big fan of like disco and soul music, R&B. So
same here.
Yeah, I kind of listen to a little bit of everything. So and maybe it's like the Four Tops or something fun like that where I just kind of get into it and get together. Like I'll put my makeup on, get dressed, get ready to go, and just want to feel good about it. And when I drive to DeKalb to do the Northern Illinois games, I'll kind of jam out in the car on the way because it's about an hour drive.
And before I go on each show, I have my Sirius satellite radio on my laptop, and I
Yeah.
always like to listen to music. It just calms me, relaxes
Yeah.
me, and it's just positive, upbeat music. And I grew up in the '70s roller skating to disco music, so I admit it, I'm a disco music guy as well. And
Mhm.
I remember the incident at Comiskey Park in '79 with the Tigers and White Sox. They had a disco, destroy the disco records stuff,
Oh,
and I
that's
guess they
right.
burned down the field and everything. That was crazy when I was 7 years old.
Wow, that is crazy. Yeah, I always feel like I'm an old soul in that way because I grew up listening to disco with my dad.
Yeah,
So ever since then, I've loved it.
definitely. And
Mhm.
what other fun fact about Kacy Standohar people don't know about?
That's a good question. One fun fact about me is that I grew up a dancer. So I used to dance competitively like most of my life from about 10 years old through college, really. So I used to compete. I used to do competitive jazz, tap, hip hop, ballet, modern dance, all that great stuff. So I always was on the stage. And I think that's why I like sports broadcasting so much because it fulfills that performance element for me, that stage element. When that red light goes on and I'm kind of performing, it reminds me of the days where I was a dancer. So that's something fun about me. I was also on the part of the monologue during a late night with Jimmy Fallon show right before he got the Tonight Show, and he gave the late night show to Seth Meyers. I was on an episode of that. I was kind of sitting in the right place, and Justin Timberlake was the guest, and I was part of this monologue where I had to interact with someone. It wasn't Justin, sadly, but so I was like on the show, and it was kind of cool to tell all my family like, hey, I was on Jimmy Fallon last night, and you guys can watch it, because they pre-recorded earlier in the day. So that's kind of a fun fact about me.
Okay, and fun fact about me is before we wrap this up, I tried karaoke once in New York City, and I emptied out the bar. Never again.
Oh my gosh, karaoke is so fun. You gotta
It
try
is.
it again.
It is fun. I had a few drinks in me, thankfully, and I don't have any musical talent, but I did try it, and I did have a lot of fun.
It is a blast. Well, that is a fun fact. What was your go-to song?
My go-to song, I'm a Michigan guy. I love Bob Seger.
Yeah.
I love Eminem. I love Motown music. Kacy and the Sunshine Band,
Sure.
the disco band from the '70s. I would say my favorite all-time song would be Phil Collins' "In the Air Tonight" from
That's great.
1981.
That's a good karaoke one. I thought you were gonna say that you sang Night Moves by Bob Seger for the bar.
Actually, Don't Stop Believing,
That's a good one.
Detroit Rock City,
Yeah.
and This Is How We Do It by Montel Jordan.
Okay, you got a little bit of a lineup there ready to go. We'll have to get you to Chicago and maybe relive your karaoke dreams.
Definitely, definitely. And deep dish pizza at Giordano's. Is that the best deep dish pizza in Chicago?
I do like Giordano's. I will say that Lou Malnati's is actually right next to me over here. They're probably one of my favorites. Also, Pequod's is very good too. If you watch the show on Hulu called The Bear, it's all about Chicago, and they show Pequod's pizza as well. So everyone kind of debates on what their favorite is. I would say Lou Malnati's is my favorite.
I will have to definitely check
You
that out
should.
as well.
You should.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to coming into Wrigley Field this summer, and I will definitely let you know when I come to Chicago.
What's the Detroit pizza? Buddies? Is that what it is?
Buddies is famous there,
And
yeah.
Jets? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, Jets and Buddies.
Mhm.
We have good pizza in Ontario too, but there's nothing better than the stuff I had in Chicago. It was a 45-minute wait for it, but it was like I had 2 slices and I couldn't eat anymore.
What is Toronto known for as far as food?
They're in a multicultural city like New
Mhm.
York City. They're known for the Chinese food,
Mhm.
Italian food, Greek food.
Okay.
Toronto is a very diverse city, so whatever you're looking for, they have it there.
Okay, cool. I can't wait to get up there for sure.
Let me know because, like I
I
said, it would be
will.
nice. It'd be nice to meet you in person to say hi or whatever.
Yeah, maybe we'll catch a Blue Jays game. I would like that.
The CN Tower, I haven't been up there since 1978 when it first opened up.
I'll
So
drag
it's
you back up there.
yes, I've actually been going up a lot of these. I've been into the top of the Rock, the Sears Tower in Chicago. I
Yes.
went up the Arch in St. Louis. So the older I get, the more daring I become.
I love that. You have to. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Hey, Kacy, I want to say thank you again for coming on, and I really appreciate talking to you. Where can my audience follow you on social media, your websites, and some of your upcoming broadcasts on ESPN Plus in the Chicago area, and quick thoughts on the NFC and AFC championship
Ooh,
game.
okay. So I saw you put my website up. It's www.kacystandohar.com. That's where a lot of my work is. You can follow me on Twitter at Kacy Standohar, just my full name. On Instagram, I'm at Kacy Stando. So it's a little bit less. There's no HAR on the end of it. That's where you could find me on social media. And my goodness, upcoming broadcast. I've got another NIU game on Saturday, this Saturday afternoon at 1 on ESPN Plus. And then I get into some high school hoops. So very excited to continue my hoops coverage this spring through March. I'll be a part of the Illinois High School State Championships in March as well for both the girls and the boys. The boys are down in Champaign, Illinois, and the girls are in at Illinois State in Bloomington Normal. So that'll be a blast. As for these games, I mean, I told you before, I want the Lions to win the NFC Championship game. I'd love to see them go to the Super Bowl for the first time in a long time. What was it, 31 years since they won a playoff game?
Yeah, the 1992 against the Dallas Cowboys, 38-6 at the Silverdome, just the year before Dallas won their back-to-back Super Bowls.
Yeah, see, that would be cool to see the Lions pull this off, especially because I really like Dan Campbell and I'm excited for the team. Gosh, they never reached the Super Bowl too.
No.
They are one win away from reaching it. They've never done it. So that would be awesome. For some reason, I thought they had been there before, but I stand corrected. As for the other game, I don't know. Lions have a tough matchup with 49ers. That's going to be tough. As for the other game, I kind of don't like the Ravens because they're like the old Browns.
Franchise.
You know, so I
Yes.
feel like I have to go with the Chiefs, even though they always win. And Mahomes and Kelsey have been on our TVs for months now, you know, with Taylor Swift and all that news. But I don't know. I don't think I care for the Ravens too much.
And Baltimore has not hosted an AFC championship game since 1971 when they were the Baltimore Colts, who are now in Indianapolis.
Yeah. So, I mean, the AFC game I don't care about as much, but I guess I'm going with the Chiefs if I'm picking a winner. But the Ravens will be tough. I will say Lamar Jackson is going to be bringing his best. So that'll be interesting. But I like the Lions for the NFC.
Yeah, I got to go with the Chiefs. I'm an Andy Reid fan, but I also like John Harbaugh, hell of a coach, and the brother of Jim Harbaugh, and who I'm a huge fan of. So I think Kansas City is going to beat Baltimore. 34-31 is going to be high scoring. San Francisco, Detroit, it's going to be more low scoring, a very physical, aggressive game. But I got to go with the Niners, 16-13 over the Lions.
Dang, you're going with the Niners.
I want the Lions to win. My heart wants the Lions.
Yeah.
But my head says the Niners have more playoff experience, and they're being at home. If this game was at Ford Field, I would give Detroit more of a shot. But I just think the Niners being at home and having much more playoff experience is going to be the ultimate factor.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. I will say at Ford Field, the Lions do shine. Their fan base goes all out, but it will be a challenge for them. Did you see that video where the reporter asked Detroit how it would be with weather condition wise, and they were like, "We play in a dome."
It must have been a reporter that doesn't really cover sports,
right? And so it's like unfortunate, but you got to do your research anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely. The only part is people do make mistakes, but sometimes social media can be real harsh, like really harsh. But I agree with you. Always do your research. The Lions have been in a dome stadium since 1975. They originally played at Tiger Stadium for 40 plus years.
And it's crazy because the high school state championships for Michigan are in Ford Field. And then the ones in Illinois are outside. I'm like, I wish we had a dome so I could be warm inside covering 8 football games.
I still like being outdoors, and I've been to Buffalo Bills games in Orchard Park and in 70-kilometer wild winds, and I'm an outdoor guy. So to me, it's just prepared. You go to these outdoor games.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah, it's part of the atmosphere. It's part of the fun. I agree.
Absolutely. Hey, Kacy, it's been a blast. Maybe the next time I have you come on my show, we'll talk a little more about the Chicago Dogs. I put their ballpark up here for you because I know you were coming on, but
Yes, I
I
saw that.
love next time to talk to you a little more about the Chicago Dogs and even to catch a game there at some point.
Yeah, I'll come back on for sure. It's a great ballpark, great atmosphere, great broadcast they put on. It's a fun family experience for everybody. I had a great experience when I worked for them. So we'll talk more about that next time.
Definitely. Hey, Kacy, I want to say have a great night. It's kind of depressing. No more Monday Night Football.
I
So
know.
I know the football season. I'm lucky here in Canada. I get the Canadian Football League and the National Football League. And yeah, CFL starts up in May and June, but you should
Yes,
check out the CFL too. It's a great football league as well.
I will. I will. Thank you so much. I had so much fun tonight. I appreciate it. And I'm happy to come on whenever.
Thank you. Give me a little bit of time and I will send you a video and
Okay.
the audio copy of her show. And I will do a 1 minute reel too as well if you'd like to put it on your social media pages as
Great.
well.
Thank you so much, Chris. I had a blast.
Thank you so much, Kacy. Have a good night and continued success in your broadcasting career.
Thank you so much. Same to you.
Thank you so much, Kacy. Good night. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed season 7, episode 29 tonight with my guest, Kacy Standohar. She's with ESPN Plus, and she's also a Chicago sports media personality. And I want to really say thank you to Kacy for coming on here as well. And before we wrap up the show, guys, my next live with CDP Sports Talk, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph, is going to be Thursday, January 25th at 2 p.m. with my guest, Kacy Nicole Nelson. She is a TV reporter, radio host, and a media personality out of Washington, D.C. So Kelsey's going to come on and talk about her latest media work she's doing, a little bit about her radio show, and some TV work. And maybe Kacy will preview the AFC and the NFC championship games with me as well. So Thursday, January 25th, 2 p.m. Eastern with Kacy Nicole Nelson. This will be her third time on my show, and she's a good friend of mine, and I'm looking forward to having her on my show as well. And as always, guys, we're going to wrap up the show in a minute. Just give me 1 second. And as always, Live with CDP Sports Talk is a weekly sports and entertainment talk show hosted by yours truly, Chris Pame. Is on weeknights from 8 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk, the heartbeat of Atlanta. Our radio station's website, if you want to listen to my show, which is on 8 o'clock tonight, is WQEEFM.radio12345.com. And a shout out to the station manager, Ryan O'Neill, who a year ago had faith in my show. And I want to say thank you to Ryan for having my show live with CDP Sports Talk on WQEE 99.1 FM. Live with CDP Sports Talk is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter /X, I still call it, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. Unfortunately, I did not click the stream key on Instagram tonight, so I will air this show at another time on Instagram. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed and also later on my audio platforms as well. And you can also check out my website at beacons.ai/Chris D. Pame. Again, all my digital media work is on there. My social media sites and my previous radio and podcast shows are on beacons.ai/Chris D. Pame. Live with CDP Sports Talk again is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles. And speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet, right now they have a Discover Winter event on at Barry Cullen Chevrolet, a 2024 Silverado 1500 custom crew cab, $139 at 5.9% financing for 24 months with $3,749 down with an ultra low kilometer lease as well. More details at barrycullen.com. You can also follow Chris Palme on TikTok at Live with CDP. I want to say thank you to my 1,854 followers on TikTok. Check out my latest media and content on TikTok. Again, Live with CDP, and hit the follow notification. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports Talk. If you're into webinars or podcasting, such as yours truly, check out StreamYard.com. To me, it's the #1 live streaming provider service out there. And you can also get a basic plan, or you can get a plan up to professional like I have for $49 US a month. And the StreamYard also has business plans. So if you're a business and you do a lot of webinars or live streaming for your business, check out StreamYard.com and check out the sales people there at StreamYard who do a great job there as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk, the audio version is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, and tuned in. And again at 8 o'clock Eastern on weeknights on WQEE 99.1 FM. Also, you guys can email or text Live with CDP Sports Talk at cpalme19@gmail.com, or text the show at 519-820-7188 with comments, questions, suggestions, feedbacks would be greatly appreciated as well. And again, I want to say thank you to my guest, Kacy Standohar, for coming on here today. I really enjoyed speaking with her. And as for the NFL playoffs, guys, I thought the Green Bay Packers had a great chance to beat the San Francisco 49ers, but their kicker Collison missed a field goal, a 41-yard kick, and Jordan Love, tremendous first year as the Packers starter. So even though they lost to the Niners, the Green Bay Packers, Houston Texans next year are headed in the right directions. DeMarco Ryans is their head coach of Houston, and Matt LaFleur with the Packers did a great job. CJ Stroud and Jordan Love have really developed as first-year quarterbacks. And congratulations to all the teams that won this weekend. And as for the Buffalo Bills, a lot of people think I hate them. I do not hate the Buffalo Bills. I just don't think this team is good enough to win a Super Bowl with Sean McDermott and Josh Allen. Sean McDermott is a very good head coach. He's done a good job making the Bills into winners and AFC East champions 4 years in a row. I'm just not convinced he's the one to lead them to the Super Bowl. And as Josh Allen, he's a very good quarterback. He's very talented, but he's not elite until he wins a Super Bowl or gets his team to a Super Bowl. I'm not blaming all these losses in the playoffs on Josh Allen, but he is 0-3 against Mahomes, and he's 0-1 against Joe Burrow, who will be back next year, recovering from his injury with the Cincinnati Bengals. So we'll see what happens with the Buffalo Bills, but disappointing in Buffalo right now with the Buffalo Bills. They finally had this game at home, but got to give the Kansas City Chiefs credit. 6 straight AFC championship appearances, and they're trying to go to their 4th Super Bowl under Andy Reid and win their 3rd Super Bowl. And Andy Reid this is Andy Reid's 11th conference championship game. Only Bill Belichick has been to more conference championship games than Andy Reid. Andy Reid went to 5 with the Eagles and 6 now with the Kansas City Chiefs. And what can you say? Patrick Mahomes has beaten them all, and all Mahomes does is win, and got to give them credit. 27-24 over Buffalo. I do feel bad for Tyler Bass. It's not easy being a field goal kicker, even though it was a 44-yard kick in his own stadium. That stadium does get very windy and gusty, and to me, the Bills at that end of the game should have been going for the touchdown instead of settling for a field goal. But the Bills had a good year. I'm just not convinced that they can win a championship under Sean McDermott and Josh Allen and Steph Diggs. So we'll see what happens there. But I am looking forward to the games this weekend. Sunday, I believe Kansas City, Baltimore is at 3 o'clock, 3:30. And then Detroit, San Francisco is the late game at 6:30. My heart says the Lions. My head says the Niners. Got to go with the head. The Niners win 16-13 over the Lions in a low-scoring game. And the AFC Championship game, I think Kansas City, Baltimore, it's going to be back and forth. I think the Chiefs are going to win at 34-31. I think Mahomes and Lamar are going to have great games. And you got Andy Reid going against John Harbaugh. And Reed's got 2 Super Bowls. John Harbaugh's got a Super Bowl ring. It's going to be a terrific weekend of football on Sunday. And then we got the Super Bowl coming up, I believe, on Sunday, February 11th, Super Bowl 58 from Las Vegas. So that's about it, guys. I want to say again, thank you to Kacy Standohar with ESPN Plus as a sideline reporter, color analyst, and a Chicago media personality for coming on here today. And want to say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed and on audio. And we look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday, January 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern again with my guest, Kacy Nicole Nelson, media personality, TV reporter, and radio host in the Washington, D.C. area. So I hope everybody has a good night, and we'll see you here Thursday at 2 o'clock for Season 7, Episode 30 of Live with CDP Sports Talk. Good night, everybody.